Let's take a look at some information and charts on DOT for Brave New Coin. Polkadot is a proof of stake network, so we get to look at all the fun stuff that goes along with that, including validators and staking rewards. Most recently, they launched Parachains. Haven't heard too much about that since it went live, other than it went live, and the true potential of DOT is listed here right on their website. It promises everything, it slices, it dices. I guess time will tell. It's in its earliest stages here, and it has the benefit from a price perspective of launching at the bottom of the earliest stages of the pre-January bull market that we had in 2021. I'm extremely interested in how prices for DOT specifically will react in a bear market, if everyone will be as nonstop blindly bullish on this sort of stuff. So it launched in 2017 after a raise. I guess it didn't launch, but they started a raise in 2017. They had issues with their parity multi-sig wallet. Here's the breakdown of the token distribution, which honestly is modest compared to some of these others. It's good to see that the token sale investors or the ICO investors are getting a majority of this and not being held by a majority of the company or the foundation. But here are all their sales, and they raised a ton of money. Even after 2017, they raised a ton of money, which is always perplexing to me. Why do you need a token if you're raising a ton of money? Just raise a ton of money and have a company, right? Like, we don't need to make a token for everything that exists. Just raise the money, make it a vanilla company, and go on from there, you know? Now you're stringing along thousands of retail investors offering exit liquidity for all these investors who got in early. And you can see the breakdown better here, but this is what you want to see. You want to see more than 50% to investors. Some of these projects are horrendously bad, where you see 40% to investors, 60% to founders in the project. Something else you need to pay attention to for anything that's had an ICO or anything that's not proof of work, where you can see what goes on directly day in and day out, is look at the supply curve. When is the SAFT investors getting unlocked? You know, when is everybody unlocking their tokens? So in DOT's case, all those tokens are unlocked at this point, and now we're just looking at proof of stake rewards. So it's good to know that, if this information is correct, which I don't doubt it is, but in some cases like HBAR, Hashgraph, you have SAFT investors getting monthly unlocks. So there's month over month over month over month, where they continue to unlock more tokens to people who are more than happy to just sell every month. Sell, which typically is not a bullish thing for price, certainly. And they explain Parachains here on their website, but when I see terms like this or things like this, I just immediately think ERC20, ICOs. It's the same stuff. We've seen this before. This isn't like some paradigm shift, no pun intended. It's sidechains, it's maybe layer 2 scaling, right? I don't know what it's eventually going to become, but it's not like this doesn't already exist. Now, does it exist in an unscalable way on ETH? That's quite possible, but I don't think it's as groundbreaking as maybe people seem to believe that it is. And as far as the consensus, again, on Polkadot, it is proof of stake. They go on to explain here what exactly the method is. Nominated proof of stake, and their name breakdown is for the model is BABE, if I can find it in here somewhere. Here we go. Blind assessment blockchain extension. It's interesting. It's interesting, right? It's nothing like this exists specifically for any other chain that I'm aware anyway. Borrows a lot of aspects from ETH and then changes some things from ETH. If you look at the list of validators, immediately I don't like the fact that most of these are anonymous by the looks of it. I want to know who the validators are. I think everybody has a right to know who the validators are in a proof of stake network. Otherwise, you don't know where they're located, if they're all the same entity, if they're exchanges, if they're all VC. That information needs to be known, in my opinion, on a proof of stake network. This Polkadot.pro, I don't know if that's Polkadot. Maybe not. See, again, this is information I don't know. I don't know if it's easy to get that information, but why does this entity have so much Polkadot in their validator? Just makes me uneasy seeing that kind of staking for one entity and then not knowing the rest of them. Just a small thing to pay attention to that no one's going to care about until it's a massive, huge deal. And then everyone's going to say, oh, why didn't we pay attention to this sooner? This could have been avoided, this problem with governing and consensus, right? Looks like 53% of the network is participating in staking. Adjusted reward is 5.5%, which is better than stablecoin lending, which is typically better than most proof of stake. So if you're bullish DOT and you're not staking, you definitely should be participating because it's excellent reward. And ideally, if you're staking, you're bullish DOT because you're holding long term, right? Like you may or may not be turned away by what is very likely an upcoming bear market for crypto in 2022, and you may just hold through that with the expectation of bullishness eventually, right? That's one way to think about staking. Active accounts by day, according to Polkascan, continue to increase. This is what you want to see on any new network. So it doesn't look like any activity is waning from that perspective. If we look at transaction counts on a weekly average, even with these random spikes, transaction counts continue to rise in an uptrend. That's also what you want to see as far as activity is concerned. Average transaction value is not really helping you much here. There's just kind of not enough data to know what's going on yet, but transaction counts rising, active accounts rising, active addresses also rising month over month, essentially. NVT in the line here falling, which is an inverse metric of economic utility relative to price. So this is bullish for DOT. Ideally, this bottoms out at some point and price turns around. Price looks incredibly bearish on technicals. So to see this as a bit of a bullish divergence from fundamentals from technicals, and also looking at Google Trends for DOT, Polkadot, which I assume this is correct, but it is very near all-time highs for Google Trends worldwide from June 2020 until now. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't think they had a conference or anything recently. I haven't seen too much media from DOT or about DOT recently. Not really sure what's going on there, but assuming this is correct and price is falling, that's also a divergence, certainly. If we look at MVRV versus price, MVRV in the fill, price in the line graph there, for most coins, this tops out at around a 2x multiple and typically lines up 1-to-1 with highs in price. For DOT, that hasn't really been the case, kind of sort of been the case. Here we hit a 2x multiple and DOT hit all-time highs. Currently, MVRV is falling pretty fast, below 1.2 now. Not enough data to really know what the bottom of MVRV could look like, but anything below 1 for most coins means that there's more on-chain activity than market cap. At a 2x multiple, there's a 2x greater market cap than on-chain activity. That's usually a massive overbought signal. So as we get more data for things like DOT and things like DeFi coins, we'll be able to hone in on, at least I'll be able to see, like, where's the bottom, where's the top, where's overbought, where's oversold. But ultimately, anything below 1 is a better buy than anything above 2. That's just the simplest way to think about it. Moving on to technicals, things are looking grim. Now, DOT is not alone in this, certainly. It had this massive wave of bullishness early in the year, then basically just ranged like all of DeFi. It had a month and you missed it if you weren't in it. Now, you obviously could have gotten in at lows here. You got some warning signals at the top that we were in for some bearishness, some warning signals at the bottom that we were in for bullishness. And currently, I don't really see any chart patterns to save this from lower lows. RSI is nearing all-time lows and did hit an all-time low the other day. No bull div just yet. It's working on a bull div. It's also working on a bearish 5200 cross. But in general, it's looked extremely weak over the past few months, really, since the all-time high. It got close to that measured move target, but didn't quite hit it. Didn't quite break out in a big way. Didn't quite have any volume. Just looks unexcited, uninspired here. So on the way down, there's support at 20. There's support at 18. Below that, 10. And below that, 3 to 5 range. But the expectation here is not bullish. As good as on-chain metrics might look, as good as Google Trends might look. Breaking below the 200, also breaking below the cloud. Those are the two biggest litmus tests I use in trading personally for expectations of higher highs or expectations of lower lows. And currently the expectation is definitely lower lows until this thing can get back above the cloud, which currently sits at around 38. Doesn't look to be many buyers in that level. DOT against Bitcoin, also below the cloud, below the 200, never got to its all-time high target, never broke that range. Therefore, this type of trade never triggered. Once you establish a range, you can fib it out. And then the idea is if we break those highs, then we probably move to the next fib up at 1618 or the measured move. So that didn't happen. This did look bullish on the cloud briefly. It was above the 200 briefly at that time as well, but that did not hold at all. So time was on your side here for bullish continuation, just didn't happen. This even looked like a cup and handle. It got that breakout and couldn't make it, just could not make it higher. And that's really the theme across the board for crypto, not just DOT specifically. It's just DOT is following everything else. In this case, declining more against BTC. It's also declining significantly against ETH. I checked last video to see what I said about DOT against ETH, and there was this bear div growing at that time. And you can think of it as a three drives or third drive, whatever you want to remember it as. But anytime you see multiple highs with continuous bearish divergence, that has to get worrisome for you. So not only did it not break above volume resistance, but the bear div did play out, and now it's below the cloud, below the 200, and a very swift, very swift all-time low in RSI on the daily, by the way, against ETH decline. Currently sitting at all-time lows. So it's hard to get turbo bearish here because it's already broken down like 50% from highs significantly, you know, but it doesn't look bullish. And previously it's needed multiple months of bull div to right the ship. And lastly, against Sol, it's also sold off. It's sold off since the beginning of the year. You know, it had its mini run up against Sol, and then Sol just took over. This is also not a bearish pattern. I like to think of this as a giraffe. Here's the head, the neck, and then the legs. Anytime you see this curvature, it's typically not bullish continuation. Until this thing can have a bull cross on the 12-hour with the 5200, it's just unlongable for me. You know, you might want to be a hero and buy knives and hope for a bull div. There's no bull div yet. But until there's a chart pattern, Adam and Eve, inverted head and shoulders, something that tells you this is a reversal, you're just buying on a hope and a prayer down here because trend metrics are extremely strong and have told you since February, do not buy this against Sol under any circumstances. So until that's above the 200 on the 12-hour or above the bullish 5200 cross on this time frame, it's just not a buy for me. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.